This, that, cabbages and kings and all kinds of things. We ought to talk a little bit about your recent journey, you know, because that was really exciting. But we can take it right from the top. And you've had a really interesting life, I've learned over the years of association
Yeah,
with you.
I think I've been lucky.
You've been lucky.
I've been really lucky.
Yeah, I think people are going to be maybe surprised at some of the things that are characteristic of the history of your life. We want to go into some of all that. And really good. It's so good to have you on this side of the camera, as it were.
Well,
yeah. Okay, welcome very much to Conversation. A pleasure to welcome to the program to put it mildly, a dear friend of Conversations, that being my trusty director, who's been a director for nigh on to a decade now in terms of my program, and also for a great number of people. She's been a stalwart member of the people here at Manhattan Network in terms of helping people in the production. She's my director, and she's just come back from a journey across the world and so forth. And we're going to talk about that and other matters. And Gloria Messer, welcome very, very much to Conversations. It's really nice to have you on this side of the camera.
thank you, Harold.
No, it's my pleasure indeed. So, listen, why don't we talk a little bit? Because we've talked after coffee and that sort of thing. We've known each other and so forth. You've had a very interesting life. Could you share a little bit of your, I do that, as you're well familiar, having been in the booth all that time. Share your background, when you were born or
when I was born.
Well,
you
I
want to
guess
know
you're not
how
supposed
old
to
I
ask
am,
that.
Harold?
No, you're still a
I'm
youngster.
old.
You're a youngster. But anyway, well, you're a New Yorker, right? Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm a New Yorker,
Yeah.
child of the 50s.
50s, yeah.
Yeah, child of the 50s. And I'm retired, and I had a lot of very, very wonderful jobs. I had my own business.
I want to talk about that because that business was really very, very significant. I mean,
it drove me crazy.
yeah, but you were. I mean, maybe we just touch on you. You were you have an entrepreneurial spirit to you.
Well,
I think that's fair to say. And you were an entrepreneur in terms of doing a business that was a serious. You had 20 or 30 people working full time for you with all benefits and everything. You met a payroll in a very responsible kind of way for a long period of time. I don't think people knew that. You had 30 or so people working for you. And,
yes, and I
that's
also
not a small matter.
I also hired people in the field because, well, let me start.
Yes,
okay?
please start.
Back in the 70s, when women's lib came about,
Yeah.
all the women were going into sales, so I became an account executive for a company that built exhibits for trade shows. And I did very, very well. And I was doing very well financially at the time. And my boss called me in, and he said to me, "Do you know how much money you're making?" And I said, "Yes." So he said, "We're going to have to cut your commission." So I said, you know, I said something about that, and then I said to myself, well, screw this. And I started before that I had read an article that a small exhibit company writes as much business in a year as I had written myself.
Oh, you mean within the larger company?
Within the company,
yeah.
right.
And this was this doing the booths and things like at trade shows and that sort of thing?
Yes,
or was
but
it more involved in that?
it's building really big booths. I built 2-story booths with staircases for Timex. I had Fortune 500 clients. I had Chemical Bank.
Is that when you were at that company, or when we went off on your
All
own?
my clients followed me wherever
They did. You took all the clients with you. I think
Yes.
that's really good. You see, that speaks very well, you know. That's like somebody who can go back to the job that they've left to ever be welcomed back with open arms. That's a very good indication you got along well and did things in an up-and-up ethical manner.
Well, the first job that I had, I started training, and I took a huge cut in salary, and they were supposed to pay me salary for a year. And after 6 months, I did so well that I said I wanted to go on commission immediately. And I did well. But my boss, again, was male chauvinist. So I left, and I took my clients from that company to another company. And then at that company, I had this thing where they tried to cut my commission.
Mm-hmm.
So I opened my own shop.
So you did. That's kind of a big jump, isn't it? To go from a place where all the rules are set and so forth, you fit into somebody else's pattern
No,
to start
not
your own?
really.
You
Not
took the clients, I understand, but still,
Yes,
it is.
but
To go
they-
off on your own seems to me
Well,
a
no, I
big
had
leap of faith or something.
I had always operated as if it were my own. I was independent.
Uh-huh.
The clients were mine. I would plan, I would sell it, I would come back, supervise construction, supervise design.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just doing what I did. The only thing different was I was paying the bills.
Yeah, but also you had a sense of integrity and concern for doing a thing right.
Well,
That's not a small matter.
That's what drove me crazy.
Yeah, because
I eventually got burnout.
Yeah.
Because it was a 24-hour business.
No, I mean, that's when you set up your own business, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, even when I didn't set up my own business, I acted as if it were my own business because I had to take care of my clients.
That's why they followed you.
Right.
Because you see, what I'm trying to say is you were getting a just reward for the good work and the integrity of what you were doing, I'm suggesting.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Because that's the characteristic of the way you do things.
Yeah. And I had been, I had worked on the construction of Tavern on the Green, Maxwell's Plum, The Great Adventure, the amusement park, so I know a lot about construction.
You had worked with Mr. Leroy.
Right, one of Leroy. And
he was a friend.
Yeah.
Family almost, right?
Yes, I worked for him for 14 years, and we were friends like till he died.
Was that before you got involved in your own business, or when
That
did
was
you work?
before.
Before. That was when you were a
Yes.
little younger or something like that,
Yes.
right? Or you did, you know, and you
Yeah.
worked on, and you got all the animals, I know, for Great Adventure or for...
First I worked for Freedom Land, which was an amusement park in the Bronx. Then I worked for Walt Disney for the World's Fair, and we had 4 exhibits. I was in charge, I was in my early 20s, like 23. I was in charge of their office, the World's Fair office. I set it up, I decorated.
Now, can we back up a little bit? Where are you coming from before that? 23, you're already a grown woman, that kind of thing. When you were younger...
No, I wasn't. I was a little girl.
Oh, you felt you were a little girl and everything, but you did that. But what was your back? What were you coming from? Where did you go to school and that sort of thing? And what was going on before you got into the work world like that and so forth?
Well, I went to NYU. My education was not in any of these fields. I was not educated. When I worked at Freedom Land, I learned a lot. When I worked at Disney, I worked with all the designers who designed Disney World and all the Disney films. And it was very educational. They taught me how to read plans and how to get things done.
No. And had you studied design or art or
I
anything?
didn't
What
study.
was your education? Let's just go. Where did you go to school and all that kind of stuff?
My education was accounting, so it had nothing to do with it.
Accounting. Well, all right. You have an
I said it
account-
has nothing. Everything
Careful, you
that
don't get your mic. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
everything that I learned,
Yeah.
actually learned by doing.
I think there's a lot to be said for learning
It's
by
the
doing,
only
don't you?
way.
Right.
As a matter of
Learning
fact,
on-the-job training or something else.
as a matter of fact, I remember when I grew up, people would start, like men would start in the mailroom, and then they'd work their way up to CEO. Today they start at the top, and, well, we only have sales companies. We don't have companies that do anything
Nobody
anymore.
manufactures anything. It's all being manufactured in China, it seems.
It's just talk. That's it. So anyway, I was pretty good at what I did and successful. And then I went to work for Warner for 14 years.
That's after Disney and that?
Yeah.
Okay.
There was some jobs in between, but
Yeah.
I think they were fairly inconsequential.
Okay, yeah, right.
And I went to work for Warner when I think I was about 26.
How did you come in to meet with Warner, or the Leroy family? I mean, and his brother was the famous brother or father? Was the famous director, Wizard of Oz.
Director, Mervyn Leroy.
Mervyn Leroy was a famous director, yeah.
And his mother, Doris Warner, was the first Warner Brothers. Warner is the first Warner Brothers grandchild.
How did you come to be in association with Mervyn?
Not Mervyn.
I mean,
Warner.
with Warner. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I applied for a job and he hired me.
Oh, all right. What was that job?
Oh, that was fun. That was lots of fun.
What was
Warner
that job?
was well. I was second in command, and at the time I started, Warner had the York Cinema, so we used to, I book movies into the theater,
All right.
and then
Those are feature films, right? I mean,
they were art films,
art films?
mostly art films.
Really? Uh-huh,
Yeah.
okay.
And the reason they were art films is because we had a low budget.
Uh-huh, well.
So we kept playing Casablanca over and over and over again.
It's a great classic
Yes.
movie. It's a great movie.
And then there was a coffee shop next to the restaurant that was doing quite well. So Warner decided that he would open a restaurant there. So he got rid of them, and he built the first Maxwell's Plum.
Oh, really? Was
Yeah.
that on 55th? Or?
No, it was
No.
on 64th and First.
And it made it like a kind of coffee shop? Or
No, it was
No.
a smaller version of Maxwell's Plum.
I see, yeah, uh-huh.
And I worked with Warner on finding all the
Contractors?
contractors,
Yeah.
yes, the decorations. I worked with the contractors and the designers. We had our own designers. I coordinated all of the construction.
Uh-huh. Did you take part in the accounting and keeping track of things that way, too,
We
with that
had
accounting skill?
we had an
Yeah.
accountant.
Okay, uh-huh.
Okay, so we had bookkeepers.
Right, okay, right.
But they just took care of that stuff. No, I did not work in accounting.
Oh, I
never
didn't
worked
know.
in
I didn't
accounting.
know.
Oh,
You
I
did
did work
train
in
some, yeah.
accounting when I
Yeah.
first got out of.
I think it's a good training. It's like law. It's
I
like
worked-
learning irregular verbs. It learns you keep things in order and everything. I think it's a good
I worked for
honorable
Webb and
discipline,
Knapp.
Yeah.
The first 3 years of my life when I got out of school. That was my accounting experience,
Uh-huh.
and then I got out of that.
Yeah, and so you did the Maxwell Plum, and then you also
And then we
did they hadn't done
after
Tavern on the Green
Maxwell's
yet?
Plum, we did
Russian
Tavern
tea
on, no,
Oh, sorry.
we did Tavern on the Green.
What was there before Tavern on the Green with
No,
all those lights now?
hold on one sec,
Okay.
Harold, you're getting me confused.
Sorry, don't want to do that.
After Maxwell's Plum, we did Great Adventure.
Oh, that's the theme park, or
That's
the
the theme park
in Jersey.
and the animal park in New Jersey.
right.
And I remember Warner came into the office and said, "We're going to put lions in New Jersey." And I said, "You're crazy.
Yeah.
They'll die.
Yeah.
They'll freeze to death."
Yes, that's right.
And
Well,
it worked.
Yeah,
And
it's still functioning.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
And you were.
I was responsible for acquiring all the animals.
That's a big
and
responsibility.
supervising the construction of the park, and I worked with the contractors, and I worked on everything.
And
I
did they take?
contracted
Yeah.
for a lot of the major rides, which we had. Some we had designed, some we bought.
I've never been there, you know.
Well,
so
you
I'm
should
not,
go.
I should go sometime, but I'm not. But it's an amusement park as well as an animal.
It's two separate
yeah.
parks.
And you were involved with both aspects of it.
both aspects.
That's a big. Were you starting from raw space, as we say, or
We
raw
were
ground?
starting with the cranberry bogs in New Jersey. There
I
was
didn't-
nothing there.
Nothing there.
Nothing
Right.
at all.
And you saw it from the get-go. How was that? It must have been a big
We
project.
used to go out there when we first started building, and just, it was like jungle. We would go through the trees
Really?
and mark each tree as to which one was going to stay and which one was going to come down.
Yeah.
So it was created out of nothing.
And you were there at the foundation, as it were, so right from the design of how it was going to be laid out, you were involved in all. It must have been an exciting thing to build
I
something
hired
as large
all
as
the
that.
people that worked for all the staff that worked for Maxwell's. I used to hire
Mm-hmm.
all the executives as well as the employees. And at Maxwell's, I was involved in staffing all the departments. And, well, I worked closely with Warner on everything. And then I took over.
You were a really close friend with him.
Yeah,
You were like family.
for a long time,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah, that's great.
Well,
You-
we were both, there was a 2-year age difference.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a heady time at the time. It was the 60s.
Yeah,
And
right.
First Avenue was really booming.
Yeah.
And Maxwell's was like the in place.
Yeah. Right. It was
so
there.
it was exciting.
Yeah.
And the stock market was booming,
Yeah.
just like it was in the 80s. It was
Mm.
booming again when we did Great Adventure.
Oh, that's when you got to doing the Great Adventure. Was in the 80s.
No,
Oh,
actually earlier than
earlier.
that.
Yeah.
Oh,
And then
wait. I'm sorry. I can't remember.
I know, it's hard to keep the decades straight sometimes.
Yes.
The same with me. I got the same
I
problem.
can't remember which came first.
Yeah.
All I remember, I was in Italy, and I
Oh.
got a telegram from Warner saying,
We're going to put
call
lines.
me, and then he said he wanted me to come back and work. I can't remember if it was Tavern or, I think it was Tavern. So then Great Adventure came first.
Great Adventure came first, right? And you were involved then in acquiring the animals, lions and tigers and bears.
I was responsible for passing, getting all the licenses and permits. I was responsible for writing the regulations for the endangered species permit.
Right.
When I first started, they had just passed the endangered species regulations, but no, the law, but no regulations had been written. So nobody could move animals around the country, and I had 1 year to get all my animals in.
You had to get them in, and you had to do it in terms of the regulatory. I'm glad the regulatory standards are being put in place, aren't you? Aren't you glad they were there, or was it a pain in the neck?
No, they weren't there. I wrote the regulations for the endangered species.
Good for you, because that was something that would make for the humane or appropriate treatment of creatures?
No, not really. It's purely political.
Political?
Political.
Really?
What happened was we were private industry. And most of the amusement parks in the United States were city or state amusement parks. They had the Catskill Game Park.
I remember that.
Which was one of the only privately owned USDA zoological parks. And the rest were government run, and there was a zoo in each city. So basically we threatened them. And after we started, we were the second drive-through safari park in the United States. After we started, the zoos were forced to take the animals out of cages, and starting the whole zoological field changed.
Really?
Because of that.
Oh.
So.
So did that affect the Bronx Zoo or the St. Louis Zoo?
Yes. Well, the Bronx Zoo used to have one specimen of each species in a cage with bars, black bars. And today the Bronx Zoo, like Great Adventure, has their animals roaming in free plains. They've taken the animals out of the cages.
Don't you think that's an advance?
Yes, it's a big advance.
And you had a hand in that.
Well,
it was political, but it was also had a good effect.
I was
for the animals.
I was one of many people involved in it.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Well, that was something good. And I know you have a good feeling. You have a great cat. I know we met him a couple
Smokey.
of years. Smokey and everything like that. And you're a good man. And then also the Tavern on the Green came after that. What was there before? Just fill us in. Tavern on the Green is a great institution. You got those trees all lit up. It's beautiful. We go there and watch the fireworks at New Year's Eve and everything.
Tavern on the Green was Tavern on the Green before, but we completely redesigned it. It was run by, I can't remember, I think it was the city. And then Warner got the contract to redesign it and to operate it. Warner was very smart.
He was smart.
He was very smart.
Yeah.
In everything, and very creative.
Ran in the family, I guess. Huh?
Yes, I think so. Very theatrical.
Nice guy, nice family.
Yes, very nice.
And what was it before? It had been like a hot dog stand or something?
No, a tavern.
I mean, before he took it over, what had it been?
It was just a different design.
Did they have those lights on the trees?
No, they didn't have any of that. It was it was sort of a Tudor design, sort of very dark. But it had been in business for many, many years.
Okay, yeah.
And it was getting sort of seedy. So it needed refurbishing, and Warner did an excellent job.
And you get those lights on the tree. That's a trademark of it, you know. It's so beautiful. You drive along Central Park West and you see that. It really looks great, I think.
Well, when we were doing that, first of all, you had to do a lot of research into doing it. And back in the 70s, I think, sometime in the 70s, I can't remember time. I
understand. I know these things all blend together.
Anyway, it cost like hundreds of thousands of dollars to put the lights up. You'd have to hire a crane to put them up, and they come down in the summer because it's not good for the trees.
It's not. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, yeah.
so the the today I don't know I don't know what it costs. Maybe $1 million. I can only guess.
To put the lights up?
Yes, because it's labor intensive, very labor intensive.
Oh.
But they do a great job.
Maybe with all genetic engineering, we'll grow trees that have lights built into them with the genetic engineering.
I don't think
No,
so,
I don't
Harold.
think that, right? All right, one last thing with Leroy, if you could, is that, wasn't the Russian tea room his thing?
Yes.
That was another fixture in New York.
Yes, I wasn't working with
there.
Warner
Yeah.
at the time. I think I don't remember if I had my own business at the
going
time,
on.
but I had left to go into sales.
Mm-hmm.
When women were becoming emancipated.
Oh, with the women's lib and all
Women's
that.
lib,
Right. You
right.
went into your own thing like that. And then you built your own business, and that was doing these display things that are at trade shows and so forth.
I had a
and isn't it true?
no,
Let me
I
say,
had
isn't it true?
I had a construction business.
Oh, okay.
I had a carpentry shop, I had a plexiglass shop, and I had a silk screening shop in the South Bronx. I had a whole building.
Yes.
And we built things there. We constructed these exhibits. I had two drive-through entrances, and I used to fill a huge trailer truck with one exhibit, so it isn't the small exhibits that you see at a lot of the
No, I didn't
fairs.
even think it was.
It's a major exhibit, and they would go to Las Vegas, Chicago, San Francisco, LA, all over the country.
Or the convention center?
The convention centers.
Jacob Javits?
And they had to be built and shipped on time.
Of course, it's a big job.
The shows were only 3 days. They had to be set up, broken down, shipped back.
Right.
Anyway.
And all of that had to be worked out, and you were working all that out, including right from the design? Did you get involved in the design?
Yes, I actually.
Or did you have people hired to do the design?
I hired people to do the design, but I would get involved with coming up with the design. I would meet with the companies and discuss their needs. Then I'd come back to the shop, have the designer design something, discuss what I wanted.
Is that a competitive business? Are there a lot of people in that business? And
yes.
Did you know who your competitors were? Was
Yes,
there an
I
association of
Yes.
design makers that make these exhibits like that? And
No,
you get
there
along
was
with
a
them,
union.
A union.
There was a union. And what happened when initially when I started, I wasn't in the union. And then when I started getting really big, I had to join the union, and they came.
Wait a minute, you had to join. You mean your company had to become unionized?
I had 2 unions in the shop. I had the carpenters union, and I also had the signage printmakers union. I forgot what it's called.
And previous to that, you'd been a non-union shop that you were running
when
you got started?
First opened it, I didn't join the union, but.
Well, wait a minute, if I may, the employees would join the union. You
No,
were it was your company.
It was my
So
company.
you were management. You were owner.
Correct.
You were manager. You
Correct.
weren't union. It isn't up for you to join the union. You're the one that they will bargain with.
No, my company joined the union,
Yeah.
Harold. What happened is I had to negotiate to join the union, and of course it was difficult to join because they really controlled who got into the business. And I had to hire an attorney to get into the union, and I had to pay a fee, which was really a kickback. The union official years after was indicted.
Really?
Yes.
Now, when you say I joined the union, you mean you went
my
from being a
company,
non-union shop
yes.
to a union shop. It was
Correct.
your shop.
Yes.
So then the people that were in your employ could have a union that would bargain with you for their situation? Or how
Well,
does
the
that,
union
you
was.
keep saying I joined the union. Well, it was really the
I was
employees.
the company.
Okay. Yeah, but you had
The
20.
company joined the union.
The company joined
The
the union.
company joined the union.
And that was it. You
The
were
company-
involved in that process in favor. It wasn't forced upon you.
No, I really.
And what are the advantages of a non-union union shop from the manager's
The
perspective?
advantages is when I put my exhibit on the truck and it got to San Francisco, that the union people didn't drop the crate and break it intentionally.
Had that happened to you before?
No, but I can't say, there are little things that happen that
Yeah.
the union sabotages if you don't pay the union, if you're not a member.
Uh-huh.
And by the way, I was very pro-union,
Yeah.
so I think unions are a good thing.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the unions were very corrupt at the time.
At that time.
And I don't know what the situation is now because I'm not in the field.
Yeah, I was raised in Detroit, you know, and that sort of thing. And boy, we had a long struggle. There were no, my grandfather, my mother's father was a union organizer around the turn of the century, but there weren't any real unions. And he was a lithographer, so they had lithographers guilds they had.
Well,
But then we went through the whole thing with the AFL-CIO and the United Auto Workers, and they were breaking heads and they were fighting. It was a real hard fight to get the right of union workers and union representatives. It's now down in the private sector to where it's only about 8% of the population in the United States in the private sector are union.
Also, I had to hire union people in the field to set up my exhibits. So they could slow down the setup.
Yeah.
And then my client would pay the labor costs. But if they slowed down, the labor rates could be tremendous. They would get over $100 an hour.
Now,
back
what
in
about
the
that?
80s.
What about that? If you have a non-labor shop, from the standpoint of the entrepreneur or the management, if you can get non-union labor, you can get them less expensively, so you can get the thing done.
I paid my union wages because
even when they weren't unionized?
Even when they weren't unionized.
That was your decision to do that?
That was my decision to do it.
You could have gotten them probably for less?
Yes, but you know, it's difficult to get good people.
Okay.
And if you have good people, other companies will steal them.
And you were dealing with skilled people. You weren't dealing with unskilled labor. You were dealing with skilled labor, a good deal, the carpenters and that sort of thing. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I remember somebody tried to hire someone away, and I was pretty good to my employees. One of them, I had given him a loan to buy a car, and someone had asked him to come work for him, and he said, well, I would never leave Gloria. But, you know, we all worked. When we had to get a show out, we worked overnight. Everybody slept in the shop because we had to pack the truck out.
Sort of like...
it had to leave at a certain time
sort
in
of
order
the
to
spree.
be.
It's sort of like
So
Judy Garland and Mickey Rooney putting on the show.
Yeah, so everybody...
Kind of spirit of spree to cooperation and everything, right?
Everybody worked together.
Right.
And they were all young people.
And you had quite a few people. Maybe it's not a small matter. You hear people, Republicans, often say, you've never met a payroll. How can you talk about this? But you met a payroll, and you had that responsibility. And does it focus the mind in a different way than people who have never had the responsibility?
Yes,
you had
know how things work.
25 or 30 people, their lives and their earnings were your responsibility, the result of what you did. So and that was carried out for a long period of time with responsible.
Right.
It gives you a different perspective on the human condition, I should think.
I learned all of that in my previous jobs. I had the same responsibilities. But the thing is, when you are responsible for it, when you have to bring the money in, I worry, and like I wouldn't sleep at night.
Yeah, but you did that for quite a long time. You had that business going for quite a long time.
My own business, I was in it, I think, about 10 years. But part of that was part of that time I was working for someone else.
That lapped over and that kind of thing. But that's a good period of time, and you pulled it off, and you got a lot done, and you were able to do all of that. So it's a good training in life. I mean, it's a good training in life.
Oh yes, I had fantastic training because I dealt with the federal government. I construction, public relations. I worked sort of on everything.
And all those animal protection...
The animals, the laws and stuff. And also
and
laws for other businesses, because you're in the restaurant business. I dealt with the government on that.
Yeah.
So I'm used to dealing with laws, and I have the accounting background, so
and you
there's
have
a lot of red tape.
And you have a basic respect, if I'm not mistaken, for elemental and ethical dealings
Yes,
between
yes.
people that I guess it
Yes.
comes out of your family background or something.
Yes.
You're very ethical and
Yes,
you have a
my
good...
parents
Yeah.
were very, very honest. They
Yeah.
pay every bill the day it came in. My
Right.
mother, when my father died, I remember she sent back his last Social Security check.
Really? That's really good. Yeah.
Never lie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Well, maybe it's good in the end. You're going to get everything that's coming to you, I like to say to people sometimes.
Oh, life has been pretty good.
All right, that's good. And then you've got, now we were talking, that's really interesting background. People, be good to know all of you, had all that. Then we met, if we could. I've been doing this public access television since the early Pleistocene. We had to move the icebergs to get the camcorders up to make stuff back in '65 or so. But we met about 10 years ago, something like that.
Actually,
And you came in, I
about
remember the day you
14
came in.
years ago.
Was it that long ago? You've got to be kidding.
I started in
14?
1992.
Well, that's 13, yeah? 13? That
and
long?
a half.
I didn't even know it was that long and a half. And I remember the day you came in. I remember you were nervous as a cat. And you were there, and you picked up on it, and
No, I did. It took me a long time. It took me 2 years to get really proficient.
Well, I can remember you coming in, and you were saying, push the button. I said, for crying out loud, wait for the thing to click, and you had to wait. You were quick, we'll do it quick. And you remember that? I remember
Yes,
the first day you were there was some editing thing or something, and I was saying, stop. Don't push the button so fast or something. But now you've gone past everybody here. I mean, it seems almost to me you know how to work all the equipment really well, and you have been an incredible help, not only to me in terms of being my director,
Thank you.
know, I appreciate that very much, but with a whole lot of people here in public access, and I presume that has a belief on your part in the concept of the people's television. I don't want to get, like that. Or we want to talk about. You've been involved, and what do you think about it, and think about communications and that sort of thing as we begin to look ahead.
For public access.
Right.
And I like to do whatever I can to make it possible to help anyone.
Well, you certainly
get
have
started.
helped innumerable people here with great integrity and great dedication, and I thank you for that in the name not only myself, of everyone. But go ahead, talk about public access.
I do it because I enjoy it.
Yes, okay.
And when I started in 1992, I was volunteering for Ross Perot, and I recommended that they do a video. I had never done a video in my life, so they said, go ahead and do it. So I did it on VHS, and I don't know how we managed to do it, but it got done.
You made a little PSA or something, or a little documentary?
It was a half-hour program.
About Ross Perot? And
yes.
Remember, he got 20% of the vote.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I heard about MNN, and then I started studying here, and then they called me and said...
Do you remember how you heard about MNN? How
yes,
that happened? What was the long and winding trail that brought you to MNN?
Somebody knew someone that had a show, and they told me about it, and they told me to look into it.
And you had a little to do with video, making that thing for Mr. Perot's
I had to find out about MNN because I had to put the...
graphics on or something?
No, the program that we made.
Oh,
I
on
had
the
to
air.
run on
I
MNN.
See. That's how.
That's how I found out about MNN, and then I found out about
that you could make a program.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you came in and you jumped in with both feet.
Well, when they called me and said you have a show, I said, well, can I skip this quarter and do it next quarter?
Yeah, right. You were nervous about.
Because I was really nervous.
You were nervous about going into the television and everything, right?
I was petrified. As a matter of fact.
Petrified? Why? I mean, I
Well,
don't mean to pry, but I'm petrified.
It was something new, I think.
Okay.
I think
Yeah, but you've been going from new things all your life, haven't you?
but
You're
you
not
also
so loath to go into something new and investigate
No,
something
but you
different.
still get nervous.
Yeah, true. That can.
And
be,
I remember the week before my first program, I got sick.
Now, your
I
first.
was-
When
I
you
was
say
in-
the first program, you're talking. You have been. People should realize it's not just people sitting here in these chairs. There's a lot of people behind the cameras and doing the booth and the editing and all that sort of thing. When you say you got involved, you were producing another show or your own show?
I was producing my first show,
Your
Harold.
own show
My-
for you
for
that was your...
Access for All.
Access for All, still
Right.
going, yeah.
I was producing it, so I was in bed calling everybody and pulling the show together from my bed
Yeah. Why were you in the bed?
because I got sick, and probably because
Nervous?
I don't know, I got a sinus infection.
Oh.
But anyway,
Uh.
it came about, and the show went well, and I pulled together a lot of my friends.
What was
and
that first show? Do you remember the content
It
of
was a takeoff satirizing Newt Gingrich.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
really? Well, that would be fun, huh? And who
Yeah.
pulled it off? Remember Ron Ushak was around then? And
I
that?
think
Yeah.
Ron, I can't remember if Ron was on the show. Ron was on the show. As a
Was
matter
he?
of fact, I had a lot of the producers on the show, on
Yeah.
the program. In
Yeah.
addition to some of my friends, everybody was playing parts.
Uh-huh.
And people were in costume.
And you put all that together?
Yes, from my
From
bed.
your telephone and your
From my bed.
from your ailing bed
Yes,
from
I was
nervous
reading-
prostration.
I was reading the newspaper and doing, well, let's see, we'll take a satire on this, we'll do this, and
Yeah.
you play Newt here. But anyway, it was a fun show. Technically, I was not doing the equipment yet
Yeah.
because I just started.
Yeah.
But the people who did it, wasn't the perfect technically, but it was good. It was a funny show.
And it worked, huh?
Yeah,
it,
it
as
worked.
they say, worked.
Yeah.
And here, this is the thing people may be viewing and don't realize. This access system, I really believe in it. You know, I think its future is ahead of it still, the access. Because you got people that are here because they want to do it, not because it's a job. In terms of the producers are here. It's not a thing where you're being hired to do something. It's because you want to do it. And if you got a situation, I like the term, I use it a lot, autodidact. That's the thing about people who educate themselves because they're interested in something and they're curious, they want to do something. If people are doing something because that's what they really believe in and want to do, that's an environment where I think really creative, good things can happen, like barn buildings or
Well,
something.
the technology is really coming into its own
It is.
because today everybody has a camera.
Now, yeah, I
A
can
camcorder,
remember. It wasn't always that
and-
way. It wasn't always that
No,
way.
it wasn't that way when I started either.
Uh-huh.
I can't remember whether
Oh, you're a
we
relative
rented.
newcomer, dear. I was there back before. I got the use, I think, of the third porta pack off the boat from Japan back
Yeah,
in
I know.
68,
I know.
69.
Well,
Look,
remember when
I
we
think.
first started, we had these big 3/4-inch tapes.
Do I ever remember?
And then we went to then we had High 8 and
Yeah.
Super VHS.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And now we're down to the mini DV, and who
Yeah.
knows where we're going. We're either
Mhm.
going to CDs or tapeless, or where
DVD
everything's going to change.
Everything's going to go to the chip because the technology is all going digital. I think it's great because there's all these things. You're really getting good. You can do that Final Cut Pro. And it should be the people, in case they don't realize, people may be viewing this, just cut in, that this is open to anybody in Manhattan who wants to come over here to 59th Street and say they want to be a producer and join in some of the people that are here. And there's about 2,000 of these places around the country where there's some citizen support for the People's Video Network possibilities here. And it's really important, particularly in an era where so many of the people feel alienated from the overall political movement
I
of
would
the
like
country.
to say something to
All right.
anyone who is interested in public access.
All right.
If you are interested, you have to be very persevering. You have to really, really go after it because there are a lot of things. There's training, and it's not that easy.
No, but you're learning in a certain sense.
Yes, but you really...
the elements of a profession. There are people that are in this profession, so it's like it's not easy to become a doctor.
Well, there's a lot to learn. It took me 2 years to learn, and I see people come in here who expect to be able to
do it in a weekend.
Come in and just do it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to learn.
I know, and you know what?
And you have to spend a lot of time.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people we take for granted, because if you look, I'm not, but like editing, that kind of thing, good cuts, and the art form of putting those things together. Let me make the point. Because although they don't have any classes in it, we all teach people how to read. They got to read. You got to read in the thing. They don't teach people how to look at a motion picture, or more importantly, television, where you've got these cuts and you're using both video
Well,
and all.
first of
It's
all,
an art form.
it's an art form,
And it's got there's a
people
lot
say
behind
you
it.
can,
They take it for granted, though, because it just comes by in a split
Harold,
second on a TV screen. They
Harold,
take it for granted.
you
But
can
there's a
learn,
lot behind
you
it.
can learn the technical parts.
Yeah.
But unless you yourself have some form of creativity,
Yeah.
it's not that easy. I mean,
Mhm.
anybody could make public access, or anyone can make a television show.
Yeah, right.
Anyone.
Uh-huh.
But you really, there's a lot to learn about the lighting, there's a lot to learn about the equipment, about the angles, and, you know, some people do and some people don't care.
Yeah, and that's the persevering. You're going to have to, if you're going to do it, you're going to persevere, and, you know, it's not, what would happen if that first show you did, you directed from your sick bed with a neurosis or something because you were so nervous about it or something like that? What if that thing had bombed? Then,
well,
you know, everybody
it
bombed, nothing
mattered.
worked, and everyone went boo, boo, boo. You
Harold,
might never have become the TV personality and
Harold,
producer that you are today,
no?
no? You would have
I was
persevered up Mount
learning.
Sisyphus?
I didn't expect it to be perfect.
Uh-huh.
No one's show is going to be perfect
You
the
wanted
first
all those
time.
display things you did to be perfect, didn't you? You wanted to make sure
Well,
they all fit into the truck.
when I started,
and,
I had
and
to
all those
learn.
animal forms were filled out perfectly.
Harold,
Yeah.
everybody has to learn.
Yeah, all right.
When I started in the exhibit business, I had to learn too.
Yeah, so.
And in the learning process, you were going to make mistakes.
Yeah, you have to learn
Because
to be able to
you
accept
learn,
yourself,
no,
mistakes
you
and
learn
all. No?
by making mistakes. If you don't make mistakes, you're never going to learn how
Well,
to
you
do
could,
it right.
you might if you don't do anything but the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over and again. There were people in factories who would turn a nut all day, 8 hours a day, turn the same nut all
but
day.
That's not,
you don't have to make mistakes.
That's not something I am interested in.
You're not that kind of person. You like,
No.
yeah, all right, yeah.
I'm not interested in anything.
You don't think you'd be a good
that's
automaton on
No,
an assembly line?
No.
How long would you last?
I wouldn't take it.
In the first place, okay.
Yeah.
No, I understand, but it's like everything like that requires that kind of a thing. And it's good to have a vision or some reason, particularly if you're in a situation, people should understand, you can come in, and this is, they make this equipment available, and the society is making the equipment available increasingly because the prices are coming down. People get this Final Cut Pro, they can do things on their computer. And this is linked into the wider use of the internet, don't you think? This is going to be streaming, this program is going to be streaming all over the world on the internet now. So these telecommunications developments are really significantly democratizing things, both the market and so forth. And so, but you got to have some reason for doing it if you're not in this to make a buck.
Harold,
What about
if we're going to get
doing-
into this, I have some opinions on that
Okay,
too.
please.
First of all, as far as the internet goes,
Yeah.
the internet has a tremendous quantity. Most of it is very poor, and I think that devalues it. And there isn't enough creative production.
Where? In the world society?
In the world, period.
Do you think there's a
I think
limitation on
I
that?
think most of the sites on the internet are over-designed. They have too much movement, too much color, too much going on, and they don't get their message across.
That's because they got the capability of...
It's because they have the capability of the technology, and they're using the technology for the technology instead of using it
with good
to-
design.
with good design or to get a message across.
That's an interesting take. Then that's distracting.
Yes, it is distracting.
With a lot of things bouncing around in the background
Right,
and
and you-
everything.
Right, and
they got that thing
they
you look
do
at the
that
news
on
that-
television too.
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
all of these things to pay
Well,
attention
this
to.
is on television now, what you and I are saying now. We're on television.
Yes, but we're not moving. We don't have all these animations.
No, on the news
jumping
show, they
on
have
here.
that thing going underneath. You got 16 different things you're reading all at once. It's enough to drive you crazy.
Well,
but
some
that's,
people like that.
And these things are trying to keep people's attention because they can change with the remote control, and they're all trying to get the eyeballs so that they can get the advertising sales into
there's-
business. Yeah.
First of all, there's subliminal messages.
They do
And
that.
the reason that they have all this animation is because there is no meat there. There is nothing really interesting. So they get movement for your eye candy.
And it works. Do you ever read
It doesn't work
Vance
for
Packard?
me. I don't watch
but
it.
you,
I
but
get very annoyed.
Vance Packard, he wrote
No.
that book. He was a great
Which
sociologist.
book?
Oh, well, he wrote one called The Hidden Persuaders. It was really back in the 50s.
Oh, yeah, I think
And it was the degree to which the advertising industry can predict within 1/2 of 1% or 1/4 of the cornflakes that is going to happen from our using a red thing rather than a yellow one. The people are emotional levels, and at that level are so manipulatable by the people who really know how to do that, and they do it with alarming.
What they
can
do
persuade
is
people to buy things. It's
they
all
persuade them by constantly repeating the same mantras.
But it works.
It works because most people don't think. They just listen.
Well, the part that was disrupting is that they could the pros could predict with such accuracy just how manipulatable the public is, and it goes into things like public, political discussion of events or thoughts or anything. People are very manipulatable by these media.
If they are not successful, they just keep repeating it, and people are brainwashed.
Yeah, well, that's
They're
the big
really
lie.
just brainwashed.
That's the big lie. They can make big lies, and they can get by with big lies.
Well, that's what
Goebbels said that
advertising
in
is.
Germany. He said,
Yes.
we can make a big lie, and
Well,
they can pull it off.
Well, look what Hitler did.
Yeah, he pulled a big lie. Yeah. Anyway, keep talking about your television. So you like it, and people, if they persevere, you've got Access for All. You've been doing that for quite a while now.
Yeah.
And that's your own program, but you also help innumerable people on the
Yes.
technical side, and you like that technical side more. I've heard you say at a meeting we had here the other day, you like that more than being in front of the camera.
Well, you've had me in front of the camera,
One
but
more.
in all these years I've been in front of the camera, maybe I could count on one hand.
Well, you see, you
It's
should
not
be on
what
the
I
front of the
enjoy.
camera more
No,
than you
I like.
You like being behind the scenes, right?
I like technical things, mechanical things. I like working with my hands because I never had a chance to do that in my business career.
What do you mean, with the making of the designs and all that?
No, that I had people drawing for me.
Oh, you had people. You were.
People drawing the designs. I would tell them what I wanted, but no, I wanted to, like, very often I'd look down on the shop floor and I'd say, you see someone doing something, and I'd say, I want to go down there and do it. I can do it better. But
oh, that's what it is. That's the thing.
like.
If you could do everything yourself, you would, because then you know it would be done
No,
right. Is that
no,
the attitude?
no.
There are a lot of people with that
No,
attitude.
that's not at all
Deservedly
the
so.
attitude
Michelangelo
at all.
could do
That's not
everything.
what I'm
Not-
saying.
Okay.
What I'm saying, Harold, is I, as a frustrated artist, I had initially, I was supposed to go to art school. I had passed high school, music and art,
Yeah, we
and
hadn't
a
gone
couple
into
of
your
arts.
early high school and stuff.
And my parents came from Europe, and they were hysterical.
They had come from Europe.
Yes,
Oh,
they
I
were
see.
born in Poland. And they said, you can't be an artist, you'll starve to death.
That's
and
true.
Et cetera,
It is
et
true.
cetera. So
It
at
is
the
true.
last minute, I was 11 years old, I withdrew, and I stopped drawing.
From art.
So I never really did anything.
But you had a feel for it at that time?
Yeah.
And then it was
I was
abandoned
encouraged
as
for it.
impractical.
It was abandoned because I was discouraged.
You were discouraged because it was seen to be impractical.
No,
to be
I
artistic.
don't know why I did it.
Okay, no.
I
But
should have never done it.
maybe it was the concern of your parents who were concerned that you not do something that you were going to be
I think the problem
self-destructively
was that I
following
was
some muse.
angry.
Oh, you were angry.
I was angry.
You were angry at
At
society?
no, at my parents.
Parents.
I was angry at an attitude that says you cannot be an artist.
Well, maybe you weren't an artist. Some people, no matter. Did you ever try to draw something and make it look like it is figurative?
Yes.
I've tried. I really have tried.
Well,
I've really sat down. I got a friend who do it and make it look.
Okay.
And I've tried, and it looks like doodle. I can't make it look.
Hal.
I have not the skill. It's an artist skill.
All right.
It's a
Here's
genetic
what
given.
happened. I had
In the
the
case of-
talent, which is why.
You had talent for figurative art drawing and so forth?
That's why I got into the schools. My art teachers encouraged me.
I didn't know. We hadn't gotten to that part in the
Okay.
beginning. We should have talked about that at the beginning.
I drew at the time. I had a portfolio. And what happened is I stopped drawing. And if I ever went back to it, I would draw exactly the same way I did when I was 11 years old.
Have you done that lately? Have
What?
you
No,
drawn
since
a
the-
drawing?
Harold, let
Have
me
you lately-
talk.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Harold, since then, I have taken some courses.
Recent?
No, over the years,
Mm.
and friends. A lot of my friends are artists, so like I,
Yeah.
and also when I was in the exhibit business, I had to come back and work with the designers. So I had to
Sure, that's hard.
tell them what I wanted,
Mm.
and I was very frustrated because I couldn't draw the perspective myself. I could draw a little sketch,
Mm-hmm.
but I got annoyed, so I went to school and I started learning how to draw, and I found out I could draw, and
That's
I
great.
could make something look like I wanted it to look.
Figurative, yeah.
Figurative,
Yeah, yeah.
or any other way,
Uh,
and give something depth.
yeah.
And,
Perspective, yeah.
you know, I traveled with a friend of mine who's an artist, so he would draw, and I would, you know, I'd start asking questions. How do you do this? How do you do that?
Yeah.
How I want to make this look like this? And
Yeah.
he taught me a couple of things. That's Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Jeffrey.
Jeffrey.
Jeffrey, thank you for teaching her that you could draw, right? And but you don't feel. Hey, are you picking up on that now? I heard you say you at the beginning of this program. You said you retired. So you were in the
Yes.
business. You retired. So you're doing this stuff in public access
I'm
as a
doing it-
retired person.
Yes, full time.
And you're doing it because you want
Enjoy
to do
it,
it, and
because
you
I
enjoy
enjoy
it,
it.
and you're doing it. To use a term that's loose, everything you're learning around this is being done autodidactically. It's being done because that's what you want to do, not because you're jumping over some hoop that a system is telling you have to do or something. You know, it's being done on your own volition.
It's being done.
That's a free state of mind in a certain sense to be able to be in that position. A lot of people say, I don't want to do anything unless I'm going to make money at it. We're not making money at this, right? This is not
No,
a,
we're not making money at
So
all.
what about that equation? People say,
Well, when
or
I
I'll
gave
come here to
up
learn
my
that.
business,
Yeah.
I realized that money was not important.
Oh,
That
wait.
the most important thing is that you are happy with what you're doing every day.
Say that again.
And I spent.
Could you say that again? Because you know what I'm saying? You say money, when you gave up your business, you realize that making money is not important, and what is important, that you're happy at what you're doing? Do you realize how
was
subversive
important-
that is?
I don't consider it subversive.
You don't
What
think it's
happened was I was working very, very hard, and I realized that I had worked very, very hard before, enjoying what I did. But now I was too concerned. I had to make a payroll. I had to worry about all sorts of things that I wasn't interested in. And when I gave up the business, I traveled and I did what I wanted to do for a while. But then I realized I wanted to go backwards to when I was younger, and you can't go backwards
You
because
can't go home again.
because when you get to be you have certain experiences,
Sure.
no one's going to hire you in
Well,
a
that's true.
position
Well,
where you can enjoy creative things and do fun. Most of those positions are when you're young.
yeah.
So
That's
it took me
interesting,
10 years to find something I enjoyed doing, which was the video. And now I enjoy not having a schedule. I enjoy having the choice of what I would like to do, when I would like to do it.
Who
having
you're going to
free
want to work
time.
with
Yes.
and not work with and not
And
have it.
also being able to accomplish, although lately I haven't had that much opportunity to be as creative in the television shows, but to stretch, to try different types of productions.
Right.
Because in the past I've done some stuff that's a lot more creative than what I'm doing now.
You mean in the television realm?
Yes.
Yeah, you have. Why do you think that is? I mean, is that something to do
Because
with
it's
the
becoming too
zeitgeist?
No,
or
it's
what?
becoming too bureaucratic.
The world is becoming too bureaucratic?
No, the situation that we have to deal with in producing the programs.
You think that, right? Okay. Well, I mean, in general, in the society, those are big general bites you were taking in terms of who is it, she who wrote a book about the passages of life, things happen in a certain phase in that. And if you were to be in a position, I was just thinking over, because I had a conversation with a friend of mine who happens to be in that kind of a position. A friend I happen to be in touch with, I happen to be in telephone, who is in a position where they're very, very, very comfortably able to do whatever they want in terms of the material world and so forth. So they would never think of doing something that they don't want to do, because they're free to not have to do what it is that somebody else thinks they should do.
Well,
and it's a certain kind of freedom that comes with, I guess in a certain sense, if you have enough unencumbered income coming to you,
well,
you're free to do what you want.
That's not
and
true,
if that
Harold.
is, well, wait a minute,
I'm
if that
sorry,
is the
I
case,
disagree with you.
okay.
Because my situation
I'm not
is
talking-
you don't need that much income.
Right.
What you have to do is make what you would like to do the most important thing.
Okay, and if you can do it for less than that, but the point is the same, in a certain sense, I would say, is that if you, there used to be a term, it was called a competency. That was, you had a competence, that is, you had enough income, you had enough the situation you're in, to be able to live the way you want to live, rather than having to earn a living.
Well, I would rather
that-
have the money to get a new camera. I would rather have new computers. There are things I would like, but I don't have to have all of
Right.
those things. I can still accomplish it with what I've got.
Well, that's good. That puts you in a state where if you can
Yes,
do
but
it.
everyone is always trying to acquire, and
Yeah, but what happens when you get to be where you've got what you need to do? You're going to need to have a venue within which you're working that you really want to do, and not because you're going to get some. And all of the ethic of the society is training people. How many
to
people
make money.
to
They're
make
training
a
people
living, to
make
earn
money.
a living? You've got to do what you're told to earn a living, and everybody's wrapped into that rather than doing what it is they want to do, because that
Well,
is
they
irresponsible
can't-
attitude. Public access is a great place where people can start testing the idea that they can do this thing, and it's not
Well,
within a,
I couldn't have done this if I wasn't retired. I'm living on,
you have some income-
Social Security.
Well, that's
so
there. Thank you, Franklin Roosevelt. That helps give
yes,
a little edge to
and
what was
I
there.
hope that we can keep it, because I don't know what a lot of the people who are retired would do. There are many people with a lot of money, but a lot of people are dependent on it.
Yeah, absolutely, and it would be nice if that could be made. And I think it's just inherent that we are going to have, the cyber nation is going to take over, and we're going to have a thing. We're going to have a lot of people who are going to be in a certain sense comfortably retired and need a place, venues to express the human spirit. Public access is one, but we can't keep talking because, as you know, we're running out of time. So we have to thank you very much for coming in and talking with us. It's a pleasure. As always, thanks for all your help, and thanks for all the help you've given to all the people at MNN and so forth, and beyond. And so it's your pleasure to have had the perceptions of Gloria Messer, intrepid and stalwart producer and director of programming at MNN. One and all are encouraged to get in touch. Maybe if you think about wanting to become a producer, get in touch, or get in touch with the movement, the idea of movement, and that MNN is a part of. Gloria, thanks a lot for everything.
You're
thanks
welcome,
for coming in.
and
Great pleasure.
thank you.
Please tune in. We'll be coming back again tomorrow. That's it for now. And do tune in. And once again, Gloria, it was really good talking with you, as always. And it's good to have you on this side of the camera for a change, right? So, But I think you're going to have a whole lot of people. If you think generation, I think a lot of people are going to be freed from that thing about having to earn a living. Either that, or we're just going to, they're going to have to come to something, because the automation's coming at gangbusters and
Well,
so forth.
the reality is people want to work.
Yeah, but you're
People
working,
really want
but you're
to work.
working not because you're meeting the needs of an industry that's paying you money or something. You're not doing it to make money. You're doing it because that's what you want to do. That's work. You get a painter working. They're working at their thing. They don't want, nothing will take them away from
But
that.
not
But
everyone has the talent
No,
to do
the
these
problem
things.
is people don't have a steady source of income, so they can be leisured to do what they want to do. They have to do what the market says they have to do in order